Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, August 17th, 2015. We're here for the purpose of the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. It's 7:35. I would ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to please call the roll.
Deuter.
Here.
Sabatino.
Here.
Leader, absent. Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
York.
Here.
Toledo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent. We're in session. We do have a quorum. Couple of different things on the agenda tonight, and the first one is going to be the promotion and swearing in of Sergeant Matthew Hippelman. I'm going to ask soon-to-be Sergeant Hippelman to meet me up here at the microphone along with Chief Ruth and his family, not Chief Ruth's family, Mr. Hippelman's family.
Yes, I know I can get. My family's here.
Thanks, buddy.
All in blue. And brown.
All right. Come on up here. All right, Hippelman.
That's correct.
Why don't you introduce us who we have here? We know the chief. You can, but start from your right. Why don't you let us know who we have here?
All right, this is my dad, Joel, my mom, Carolyn, my wife, Maureen, and my daughter, Emily.
Fantastic. Well, this is one of the best parts of my job. I actually have an opportunity. I swear in all new officers. It's even better when we get to promote from within. Shows that certainly you've put your dues in, and clearly, I don't know if I've ever seen so much support. But I think it's fantastic, the opportunity for your hard work to show and for us to be able to promote you. So without any further ado, I would ask you to raise your hand and please repeat after me. I, Matthew Hippelman,
I, Matthew Hippelman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the charter laws and ordinances of the City of Elmhurst,
and the charter laws and ordinances of the City of Elmhurst,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Sergeant
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Sergeant
of the Elmhurst Police Department
of the Elmhurst Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Chief, you want to put that on him?
Actually, I'd ask his dad.
Okay.
I'll just stand over here. Here. You can place that on your son. Don't stick him though, it's an IOD. A lot of paperwork.
That'd be workers' comp.
Yes.
Okay. Close enough? All right, well, we're going to ask you and your family to join us up here on the dais. 1 second. Do a couple of pictures along with the chief. Come on up, chief. You can stay in the middle. Clearly you're there. Chief and I are good bookends. Come on, family's up here too. Mom, dad, everybody. Why don't you stand in front of dad? Put your mom up here. You guys direct us. How we doing?
Steve should be the guy for pictures in school. Collateral damage.
Good? All right, we're going to invite all brothers and sisters in arms to come on up here and have a picture with Sergeant Hippelman. Come on up, everybody. Let's back it up here.
There, that's so cute.
The first, yeah. Yeah.
Shortest in the front.
That's cool. I like it.
Watch your step. Watch your step.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Watch your step.
Huh? That's blue.
Right.
It's more dangerous when coming back down.
What's up, guys? Thank you.
That's a crowd. Is anybody guarding the city, Heidi?
That's what I said before
Everyone
we
in
walked up
here?
here. I'm like, I feel really safe here at City Hall. But the rest of them.
Art takes pictures.
Camera. I'm like, what's Mullenor doing?
Get your way. I'm sitting there's people driving around like maniacs right now.
He's saying,
Meeting and I wanted to work on my schedule slowly, so. How was that meeting? Communications? Yeah. It was good. I want to make sure I'm not in the
Mulliner.
2.5, I think. Yeah, they seem to be getting a little quicker. Yeah. The only obstacle is the school district. She's camped on. So were you going to make sure that too while I was gone?
You got hired.
it's on all the jokes. I can't hear.
Is it Bobby? Yeah, where's Bobby going?
I'm sure you did just fine.
Nice try, Mark.
Watch your step.
Got a picture with him.
A for effort.
That's my role.
Mayor, don't go too far. We're doing another.
I know.
Award of Valor.
Files a claim 3 weeks left. Watch your step.
It's an intense soccer club. It's not. I remember that she was working with Storino. If your kid ain't in soccer, stay away from.
There we go.
She has an interview.
There we go. Oh, where is it? Oh.
Did I get everybody in the? I get everybody. My water.
Yeah.
You missed half.
Okay, I'll give a quick speech, then turn it over to you quickly. All right.
He's got the, below the head, designated
Oh, okay.
All right, Longfellow, we're moving on here.
You should closer to the action than right there. So.
Okay, as I said, we have a couple of things going on tonight. Agenda item 4 is a presentation of Award of Valor. As I said, when I swore in Sergeant Himpelman, I have an opportunity to swear in all new officers. And one of the things that I say, especially to the folks that attend, is these folks have our undying gratitude. These are the folks that when we say goodbye to our families in the morning and we go to work, these folks, it's their job when they go to work to protect our families. So whenever there's something going wrong or something bad, we're going one way, they're going the other way. And we do. I say we have the best of the best here, and that extends also to our neighbors. And that's what we're here to recognize tonight. As I think most folks know, on April 27th, a vehicle left the roadway in Eldridge Park and went into the lagoon about 90 feet, 10 feet underwater. And above and beyond the call of duty, without any thought to their own personal safety, we had 3 individual officers who actually went into the lake and retrieved an unconscious person 10 feet below the water. And that's what we're here to recognize tonight. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Ruth.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I will share with you the description for the Award of Valor. The Award of Valor is one of the highest awards that we can give on the police department. It's not quickly or easily given. It's with much thought and reservation, and there's a peer review process that occurs. On April 27th, 2015, Elmhurst police officers responded to an emergency call for an occupied vehicle that had driven into the pond at Eldridge Park. Upon arriving at the scene and being advised by witnesses that the driver was still in the car, both Officer John Pacewick and Oak Brook Terrace Officer Jason Slugowitz immediately removed their duty gear and without hesitation entered the water and swam to the submerged vehicle over 90 feet away. Officer Margaret Hopkins arrived moments later and observed Officers Pacewick and Slugowitz in the water, at which time Officer Hopkins removed her duty gear and entered the water to assist. The three officers were able to recover the victim, the driver, from the submerged vehicle and pull him to safety. Officers Pacewick, Slugowitz, and Hopkins are recognized for their bravery and for their immediate response in a life or death situation, disregarding the risk of their own safety and their own well-being in an effort to save another. Their actions are consistent with the highest level of service and tradition provided by the Elmhurst Police Department, and they are well deserving of this award of recognition and honor. Officers, please step forward. Officer Slugowitz, Officer Hopkins, and Officer Pacewick. It'll close on you.
Thank you.
These are the awards of valor. We appreciate your dedication to duty and service and risking your lives to save another. Thank you.
Shake his hand and walk around. Inside? No, outside. Just on the outside where the water was spilled.
Congratulations. 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 Thanks. Congratulations. Thanks for your bravery. Oh, no, that's not it. Congratulations. Great job. Yeah. Congratulations. Great job. Thank you. Stay safe.
Congratulations. Little thing.
Officer,
Congratulations.
very much. Thank you. Officer, great job. Stay safe.
Look at that.
Thank you. Officer, great. Congratulations.
Watch your step.
Good work.
Watch your step. Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you. And watch your step.
Good work.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, we actually are pleased to honor a request by an Elmhurst employee, Mark Stevens. Mark is a member of our forestry department and is also a member of the Illinois National Guard, and at his request, asked to have an opportunity to address not only the audience, but the city of Elmhurst and the elected officials. So, Mr. Stevens.
Good evening. My name is Chief Master Sergeant Mark Stevens, but for the last 16 years, most of you know me as your Superintendent of Forestry for the City of Elmhurst. As of August 3rd at midnight, I retired from the Illinois Air National Guard with 30 years of service. But tonight, I'm here for one simple reason, and that's to say thank you. I'd like to thank both current and former mayors, city council members, staff, and residents who supported my military service for well over half my career. Whether it was through city policies, fellow co-workers who stepped in to ensure work was completed while I was gone, or even residents who understood why a return phone call was delayed or a field inspection had to wait an extra day or two. The city of Elmhurst has always stood behind me and supported me. I will always be grateful to those who helped me and my family during my 2-month deployment in 2007. At certain times in our careers, The only thing we can do to recognize when someone has gone above and beyond when supporting us is to say thank you. Tonight, it really doesn't seem like enough, but I can only hope you will accept my thank you with the respect and appreciation I truly wish to convey. The City of Elmhurst has been and is a wonderful place to work, and more importantly, I've made many wonderful friends along the way. I do ask one simple favor, though. I'm retired, but there are those that still stand in harm's way. I ask that you remember and support them, just as you did me. In closing, from a crusty old Chief Master Sergeant, please accept my deep appreciation for all you have done and all that you are. Thank you to the City of Elmhurst.
Congratulations, you made me cry.
It's a lot. Thanks for everything. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for your service.
Mark, for your service, watch your step.
Thank you.
Would not have been a good way to end.
Bill and I
Okay, we're going to give folks a couple of minutes to file out. I'm not a big one for ceremony and recognition at city council meetings, but I can't think of a more appropriate way to recognize these folks for all of their hard work, and it's an honor and a pleasure to just be part of this.
I can't read. You don't have an extra. I don't. Do I out?
little girl now.
That's what it was.
That little boy. Is he behind you? Is he a police officer? He's a guy in a bald head. See that balding?
8 years. Sorry.
Too late to
No.
never, right, Tom?
I didn't think of that. See, 3 vocations. No, they're right at the end. See, he's talking. I think it's the dad. See, there, he stood up. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately, we had last night with the ash borer thing, and I mean, there's a lot of challenges right there in forestry.
Darn.
Yeah.
Should be-
No, he's a really well-respected too. Well-respected amongst his peers, both here in town and
He's still perfect.
elsewhere. Because I used to be in landscape.
Little girls
I have
are.
quite a few landscaping contacts and stuff, and everybody knows of Mark.
Not cute.
That's my impression.
Things are crowded.
The glasses off.
Yeah.
That was really.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they don't like.
Vacationers, he's laying low.
Yeah,
He should have written a column the next week saying,
it's just when you push it out, you jeopardize other people's trees, especially with Dutch elm disease, because it spreads.
she's big.
Ash borer.
Not quad.
Dutch
He
elm
didn't get to
disease.
sign in.
There's a tree that was left way too long on private property. Cost 4 other elm trees to go down, and 3 of them were on public. So,
Well, if she really believes it, then
delaying is, it's, doing it's an unpopular thing, but delaying is a costly thing. Costs
I've got a couple times for it. What do you want me to?
He's trying to decide whether she's going to stay.
But they don't enforce it.
Okay, I think that's it. On to agenda item 5, receipt of written communications from the public. At this time, is there anyone in the audience who has any written information they want to submit? If so, please raise your hand. We have 2. You can both approach and please deliver whatever you want to your written communications to Clerk Spencer.
Yeah, we let the council have it all. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, yeah, they'll get it.
Chief's allowed to close the door, is he? Okay, all right. Okay, anyone else with any written communications? Well, no, we're going to now go on to public forum. I'm just asking if anyone else has any written communications. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6, public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the City Council on any topic they so choose. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes out of respect for other people that want to speak and out of respect for the job that we're trying to get done here this evening. If you run over 3 minutes, I will give you a gentle reminder and ask you to wrap up your comments. Clerk Spencer, is there anybody at this time who has signed up to speak at public forum?
Yes, Denise Thompson, 177 West.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, just to clarify, because I see there's a little bit of confusion. We have a sign-up sheet in the back of the room, and we go in order of that sign-up sheet, and then anybody who didn't have an opportunity, I'll do an open call for anybody who wants to speak. So we'll go in order of what's on the sheet. Clerk Spencer.
Okay, sorry about that, Mayor. Denise Thompson, 177 West Fremont, is it?
Perfect. Please approach that microphone right there where we record, and please state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Denise Thompson. I live on West Fremont in North Elmhurst. And I'm afraid my presentation isn't going to be as uplifting and inspiring as what you've just seen, but I hope we can learn something from it. I'm going to talk about O'Hare jet noise in North Elmhurst. The O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission held a series of 4 meetings last week for residents to learn more about the runway reconfiguration at O'Hare. I attended the meeting at Monty's Banquet Hall in Bensonville last week. I hope some of you attended. Unfortunately, I do not have good news for those of us living in North Elmhurst. I spoke with a knowledgeable representative who displayed several charts and maps and tables and show a disturbing trend in jet noise from the south diagonal runway 4R22L, whose flight path is directly over North Elmhurst. I learned that this runway is now being used for a full 30% of all departures at O'Hare and represents a 26% increase from April to May of this year, with the trend going upward. Everything I read and interviews I've heard indicated that the diagonals were to be used only when conditions were not conducive to using the new parallel runways. In fact, Ginger Edmonds, head of Aviation Chicago, said exactly this on WBBM 2 weeks ago. The statistics, however, show otherwise, and so does the noise overhead. Furthermore, the representative indicated that the proposed rotating fly quiet program at night may very well affect us too. The south diagonal runway may be included in the rotation for 1-week stints of night departures from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. The FAA says it will take our comments into consideration, which must be sent by August 26th. I must urge our Alderman Bob Dunn, our Mayor Steve Morley, our City Manager James Grabowski, our Reps Chris Nybo and Patty Belloc to make it known that occasional use of the diagonal runway over Elmhurst for bad weather or poor wind conditions has turned into regular use, to the extent that almost 1/3 of all departures from O'Hare originate from the runway over the flight path is over South Elmhurst. It is not acceptable after having built 2 parallel runways and opening a new one in October, that the south diagonal runway should be used for 30% of all departures at O'Hare. And O'Hare is the only airport in the nation that still uses crisscrossing runways, some modernization program. Why has Elmhurst not responded to this change in the use of diagonal runways for departures? We are behind the curve now. Other towns around O'Hare have made their voices heard. The Fair Coalition has the ear of the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission and wants the diagonals to be used even more. I am disturbed that Elmhurst is silent on these issues. The FAA is listening to our comments right now. Let's do something about it. This is part of the packet that I turned in, and it clearly shows that departures on our southwest diagonal runway are at 30%. There are no other numbers except one, the very overly used south parallel runway, that is at 39%, but all the others are much less. We were supposed to benefit from the parallel runways, and we now are at 30%, which is higher than any. If you look at all these numbers, they're all quite low. And we are at 30% over North Elmhurst. Once again, after suffering through decades of long, low, slow landings over my house, now we have a 30% use of departures on that diagonal runway. Thank you very much for listening.
Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine.
Thank you. Kathleen Sullivan. This week you're going to be discussing the capital budget, so I was reviewing it and I had a number of questions and observations. On the capital budget, I'm not sure that I see where the incremental value of the tax base increasing with the new developments, such as at Hahn and Nitty, will increase the funds available for capital spending over the next 5 tax years. Could that be clarified? I also see a shortfall in we see a shortfall in 2015 spending, and could that be clarified as to what the source of that is? For capital spending, I see that the sidewalk cost share program is included in the capital budget, but I don't see the other incentive programs that affect the sewer systems in there. Could that please be clarified? Do the building permit and impact fees that you get from all of the construction go into the capital budget when we see the effects on the streets and on the sewer systems? And questions, I have a few questions. I have a question on an inconsistency that I saw. There's a proposal to build a device at St. Charles Road and Cottage Hill that would be like the device that was described at the Prairie Path in York, yet at the Prairie Path in York, the proposal is to put in a $3 million underpass. So there's some food for thought there as to whether $25,000 now is going to be turned into an underpass in a couple of years, or whether that device is useful at the underpass in York. And also, but I do want to say that it looks like we have a lot of capital spending with regards to stormwater management over the next couple of years, now in 2016 and 17, and hopefully we'll be getting shovels in the ground on those projects as budgeted. Thank you.
That's all who signed in tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I know there was a lot of folks here, and not sure if everyone had an opportunity to make their way back there. That's it for everyone who was signed in. Was there anybody who did not sign in or have an opportunity to sign up? Please raise your hand so I can see how many we have who wish to speak. Okay, I see 4 hands. We're going to go left to right, starting with Mr. Crumry and then all the way over.
Michael Crumry, 570 West Crockett. I'll be quick tonight. Got it on an index card. I submitted some more documentation of the continued sidewalk cafe violations. There's a couple more included on that. A couple of administrative suggestions. Only one of the 4 committee meetings were held last week. Just a recommendation is possibly on board docs, if you can put agenda, no meeting, versus it being just not there. Residents might think, did they not post an agenda, et cetera. And I actually did take the time to look at previous meetings, and there was no notation in the notes of those previous meetings saying the next meeting was to be canceled. So just a thought if you could put agenda, no meeting. One other quick administrative thing then on the flood mitigation communication meetings in City Hall. They're being held obviously here in City Council chambers. Just wanted to toss out whether or not the suggestion could be made to actually have the participants of that meeting sit where you guys are sitting so that they're not having to fight over one microphone. Just a thought. And as elected officials, I do appreciate that you guys take the time to be here. Sometimes the meetings last, 2 hours, but I'm glad that you stay in your seats and listen during the whole duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Pagash, I believe you were next.
Claude Poggett, 566 West Gladys. Thanks, Mayor. I had an interesting drive through the city about a couple weeks ago. I was going down York and I thought there was a sandstorm. Clouds of dust bellowing across York, across Addison, across North Avenue. Having been in the business, building departments generally came up to me and informed me that I was a guest in their town. They understood that something had to be built, but they reminded me I was a guest and that I will maintain the right-of-ways. The dust cloud kept on drifting all the way down York. I assume we have a building department. Well, wouldn't you know it, I drove down there a couple days later. Same setup. I understand it costs money to haul water, but it's a requirement to keep that dust down. It also lands on the property owners on Addison. I would have hated to had lunch in any of the restaurants or gone into any of the stores along York. We do have a building department, do we not? I guess not. Dead silent. Like I said, many a building department has come up to me and said, you will maintain it. I don't see why in this town there's such a grand failure, not only on major projects like this, but if you aldermen travel through your own neighborhood and see houses going up, why is it the material is not in the dumpster but around the dumpster? Why, when excavation takes place, there's not but mud down the street? I've had crews of guys out on jobs with shovels and brooms because the city insisted the street would be put back in a position to be usable by all. It's a continuous failure. You have ordinance to protect trees, let alone I've gone by on weekends and seen fences down around construction sites. Talk to your legal department, gentlemen, and ask them exactly what a construction site is. Some child goes over there and falls in, and you'll really understand why. If you don't enforce it, you're equally responsible.
Mr. Pagash, I'd ask you to wrap up your comments.
So I'd hope that the aldermen would kind of walk through their districts and take a look at things. Remember, those contractors are guests.
Ms. Wolf, I believe you were next.
Thank you. Paula Wolf. I live on Larch on the north side of Elmhurst. And I want to say that I'm pleased that it seems things are moving forward with the Park District. I don't feel as positively with, what the school board is working towards. And I'm concerned that I don't understand where the city's at. Do you think this water retention, detention is going to save us? Are you still looking at fixing our infrastructure, or is it going to stop once we get York Commons, Golden Meadows, and the other areas taken care of? Because I can't help but think that the city is bringing in more money. We have permits going out. We have higher taxes because we're losing all our quaint little houses to all these huge bills. Is any of that money going towards fixing the streets that these builders tear up? Is it going towards giving us a better infrastructure? They're questions I have. I don't understand it. I hope you're giving a lot of consideration. Like I said at Thursday meeting, I'd hate to think that you're thinking as our federal government and our state government does, because we're in a lot of trouble financially. And I'd hate to see it happen in my own city. Just using a little common sense, and don't buy something until we can afford it, or until the really important things are fixed. I would truly appreciate it. And my other question is about the buyouts. Now, with the new budget, are you increasing that $1 million? Because $1 million will not buy a lot of homes in Elmhurst unless it's going to be at a reduced value, because we can't redevelop parts of our homes and lots because of the water we've taken on. Now, I suppose any of us could sell to a builder, but we're not going to get our money back. And most of us have poured quite a bit in. I bought a fixer-upper. I know I wouldn't get every penny back, but I know what other homes on my street have sold for, and they're the ones that don't get the water. I'm not the only one. So I hope you increase that budget, but more so, I hope the infrastructure gets fixed along with developing these other fields to take on the water, because nobody really wants to give up their home, or why would we have moved to Elmhurst? And one more thing, Elmhurst, I always thought of as a quaint little city, not a cookie-cutter city. I moved away from one of those. And now with all these new bills, it looks, one street can start to look like any other one, and I think it's very sad. Thank you.
Ms. Lonergan, I think you were the last one.
Barbara Lonergan, 261 West Fremont Avenue. I'd like to follow up on Denise's comments regarding O'Hare noise. I've lived in Ward 2 for 8 years. In the first 5 years, we were impacted by air traffic in various ways. Conversations during our backyard barbecues are interrupted every 2 to 3 minutes by air traffic noise. We've had sleep interrupted by low-flying planes. Obviously, summertime is worse. With windows opened, we have to temporarily halt phone conversations or crank up the volume on the TV until the planes pass by. My family came to Elmhurst by way of San Francisco, and we are not sarcastic when we say that the rattling of our current home is similar to a California earthquake. On more than one occasion, low-flying planes have set off our outdoor motion detector lights. We've had a short reprieve from the noise beginning in October 2013 when the airports shifted flights to the east-west runways, but have recently both seen and heard a return of flights over our neighborhood, a 25% increase from April to May. In advance of last week's O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission meetings, we called upon our aldermen, city staff, and other state reps to address the commission on our behalf. Communities currently feeling the negative impacts of O'Hare noise, like Elk Grove Village, have received extensive media coverage and have well-organized campaigns encouraging residents to speak up. Elk Grove has a dedicated website designed to collect feedback from residents, and that feedback will be sent directly to the commission. To my knowledge, Elmhurst has no organized campaign, has no media coverage, and in many cases, the residents that I speak to in Ward 2 are not even aware that they have an opportunity to provide feedback to the commission. The current deadline for feedback to the commission is quickly approaching, Wednesday, August 26th. I encourage the city to communicate the email address and the mailing address to the commission, to residents, and I urge Elmhurst elected officials and city staff to speak up on behalf of those residents who have been and will continue to be negatively impacted by O'Hare air traffic. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it for everyone who raised their hands. So that concludes our public forum for the evening. On to agenda item 7, announcements. Any announcements from the dais? Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. This coming Friday is the 20th annual ECAF Golf Classic. This year it recognizes Jack Island as their award winner. It's going to be at the White Pines Golf Club. I think lunch is 11:30. Shotgun start at 1 o'clock, but it's their major fundraiser for the year. ECAF does a lot of wonderful work in the community, assisting Elmhurst families with unforeseen medical expenses. And I know there are a lot of openings available for the event, so I would encourage everybody to take a look at ecaf4kids.org and come out and try and join the fun. Whether you can play golf or just join us for dinner, it's a great opportunity to support a wonderful cause.
What was the date on that again, Alderman York?
This Friday, August 21st.
Okay. Okay. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. At this time, is there any items on the consent agenda that an alderman wishes to have pulled to provide additional comment or vote no? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as published. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Mulliner. Clerk Spencer.
York.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Leader. Absent. Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Volumsky.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Onquist.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, consent agenda. Motion is approved. Consent agenda is approved in its entirety. On to agenda item 9, reports and recommendations. 9.1, Mayor Morley, that's me. Couple of quick updates. We had a stormwater communication committee update, committee meeting, public meeting last Thursday. Let me get to a date here. Thursday the 13th. Another productive public meeting, lots of folks participating in public forum. Representative of Parks and Schools were there. Parks updated us on their IGA and their status. We have sent them a revised one, a couple of revised ones. They're continuing to work back and forth between Executive Director Rogers and City Manager Grabowski and the attorneys. I don't think there's a lot of disagreement at this point. There might be 1 or 2 sticking points, and then ultimately the IGA will go to the Public Works Department for a review. That's anticipated in the next 30 days. The parks have committed and approved verbally, and that's what we're trying to put in writing, the use of the west lobe of York Commons and the west lobe of Golden Meadows. There might be some DNR restrictions with Golden Meadows. We do have a meeting with Patty Bellock and the director of the DNR this Friday to see if we can cover some of those hurdles, clear some of those hurdles, and get a shovel in the ground as soon as possible. In addition, at the meeting, we talked about the remaining 3 parks that have been proposed in the Burke report for flood mitigation, that being Crestview, East End Park, and Seminole, and talked a little bit preliminary about those. And I would encourage you to go to the city website and watch the meeting for more details, or talk to your alderman. We also had a conversation with the schools, a little bit of update there. We're still waiting for some feedback from the attorney from the schools. They do have an IGA. There has been some commitment to rewrite parts of the IGA on their behalf. We're waiting for those. Verbally, though, the schools have committed in principle to allow us to move forward with the Madison project. And as council will recall, we had proposed several different ideas at Bryan Middle School that really entailed the west side of their property from Van Buren down to Butterfield. Various options. At this meeting last Thursday, the school board explained that they're kind of going through a planning phase, which they're including the public in, but some of their capital projects are yet to be defined. However, that having been said, the school board did say they could commit to what we're referring to as the gravel lot. It's the southeast corner of the Bryan property where they currently store vehicles. They did say that that would not be impacted by their capital planning, and that it would be their intent to allow the city to utilize that property for storage, and the city would compensate them with vehicle storage over at the Public Works Garage. So some positive news out of that, but we still have to hammer out an IGA with them. DNR on the 21st, and another public Stormwater Communications Committee meeting right here in this room on August 27th. And we'll post an agenda, and has been for the last 3 meetings. There will be an opportunity for public to speak. A couple other things. Council received, I think, in additional, it was sent out last Thursday, I think, additional packet information. As council will recall, about 3 months ago, the council approved and added to our code what I'm referring to as the Town and Gown Committee. It's a committee that is staffed or populated with 4 folks by the city and 4 folks by the college, and they work together for the good of both groups. The 8 names to start the Town and Gown Committee are in and have been submitted, and looking for your support and approval at our next meeting. Resumes for all 8 folks were distributed last week to you folks. Last but not least, this happens every year about this time, Kathy Jordan and Christine Hansen, both on the Senior Citizens Commission, put together a tour of senior housing in Elmhurst. Chris Hansen is the housing chair for the Senior Citizens Commission. This year, the tour, the Senior Housing Fall Tour, will be on Saturday, October 17th. And all elected officials are invited to go and see what senior housing is offered to the citizens of Elmhurst. I've gone a couple of times now. It's quite enlightening to see what we have to offer. A lot of different variations, a lot of different options. So I would encourage all aldermen to attend. You can contact Kathy Jordan, Chris Hansen, or myself, and let me know that you're planning on attending, and a specific meeting place and time is forthcoming. But it is Saturday, October 17th, usually in the morning, around 10 or 11 in the morning. And that's it for me. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. One update before I get into the capital expenditure budget. We did attend the FAA open house. I actually attended 2 of the meetings, one in Niles and then one in Bensonville. I saw Alderman Bram there. I think Alderman Leader was able to make it there as well. What the meetings were, and I know that we had talked to the council about that in advance, it was the reevaluation of the environmental impact statement and the record of decision from 2005. So it was a very technical, legal title for the hearing, and it surrounded the opening of the new runway on the south end of the airport, which is 28 left, 10 right. That is part of the modernization program, so that we have 3 east-west runways on the south side of the airport, and eventually there would be 3 east-west runways on the north side of the airport. If you recall, maybe a year ago or so, I made a presentation to the council, and it was more specific to a runway that closed, and that was runway 32 left, 14 right. And that is a runway that points to the northwest towards Arlington Heights. The FAA closed that runway because of incursions that could occur with flights departing and arriving. They took some time to study that runway, and I'm pleased to report one thing that I did learn in the hearing is that that runway is open again. And that's good news for Elmhurst, because that would send planes out to the northwest rather than the southwest over Elmhurst. So our position, and I can make a more detailed presentation in the future, but as part of the Suburban O'Hare Commission, we have all worked together to push for full build-out of the airport, the OMP. And the reason that's important for us is that with 3 east-west runways on the north side of the airport, that's a chance to divide the air traffic even more. And planes generally on that side of the airport would kind of tail to the northeast and northwest rather than the southwest and southeast as they are on the 10s and the 28s that are in place now. So the hearings last week, again, focused on the new runway and how that was going to be used. It's a shorter runway. My understanding is it's going to be used mainly for arrivals from the west. I put a little note in the Friday memo about that. There's plenty of documentation here if anybody's interested to look at that, but essentially it was the reevaluation just for that runway of the EIS. So I'm pleased to answer any questions now, or if you want to email me or call me. I'd be happy to talk about that.
I think that's a good idea that you brought up. I think I know we did a presentation to the council about a year ago, and there are several groups that have been brought together to call it Fight O'Hare Noise or express opinion, but there's a SOC, which we've been a member of for a long time, and SOC is just completing, I want to say it's over $300,000 in studies on our behalf, but there's also FAIR, which is a newer group, and then Chairman Cronin actually has a group that I think met recently.
Meeting this Friday.
Meeting this Friday. So there's 3 groups right there that, we're either part of or attended or kept up to speed on. And it's kind of like alphabet soup. I think it'd be a good idea to maybe have a greater presentation, because I know that all elected officials get questioned about this. The biggest thing we can do is have our voice be heard. We're limited in our ability, but voicing our issues is probably the best way to do it. So let's put that on the agenda in the next couple of weeks for a full update. Okay. And we'll make sure that's published ahead of time so folks can watch out for it. Alderman Bram, you had something before we move on to the KEB?
Yes, thank you. So I'm glad to hear the city manager and you, Mr. Mayor, agree with my request over the weekend to have a presentation on O'Hare and where we stand as a city and our position, as well as how it will impact us. Since I didn't see a response earlier today, I'm glad we're moving forward with that. Hopefully sooner than later, because this seems to be moving at a more rapid pace. Some of the things that I learned at attending the reevaluation hearing at Monty's in Bensonville is, as the resident earlier who spoke tonight, is this runway being for our 22L, the part that's really important to us, the north side of Elmhurst specifically, is that designation 4R was when the arrivals were happening on that diagonal runway. Now what they're doing with this proposal is using 22L, which is making that diagonal runway departures, which is significant more pollution, significant more noise, hurts the environment even more, and the frequency is going up significantly. I would like, as part of this presentation, to learn about where things are at that point when the presentation is given, but also where the city's position is and what we're doing to prevent this. Another request that I made that I haven't seen a response to is adding information on the website as it occurs. Some of these meetings, Mr. Mayor, you spoke about, I'm glad to hear the county's also taking a stance and having meetings as well, is something that I think would be beneficial to the city of Elmhurst residents. I haven't seen a response back saying that we will move forward with doing that. At one time, O'Hare information was prominent on the website. I think it impacts a significant amount of Elmhurst residents. If I look at the 2 north side wards, I'll say with a very rough ballpark, 2/7 of the city. So I think it should be prominent again because of the severe impact that this does have. One of the other things that I learned was in regards to soundproofing. They have a federal standard, 65 DNL or 65 decibels noise level has been the standard. It is something that is being reconsidered, either how they get to that calculation or to not use that as the standard going forward. I hope Elmhurst takes a stance because we are not in the soundproofing map today. We never have been. Even the interim alternatives that they talk about, and when they reach the proposed final plan in 2021, we are still not in the soundproofing arena for any dollars proposed. I hope that the city of Elmhurst takes a stance that this needs to be reconsidered, this needs to be changed, because with this runway, 22L, that is being significantly used, I believe the resident said 38 or 40-something%, depending on the weather conditions. I think that needs to be reconsidered, so we could see, at least if we cannot prevent this from occurring, we could see some soundproofing benefit. Not including any of the other things that I learned in regards to pollution, air quality pollution, because of that data was mostly presented talking about what the air quality was at O'Hare once these configurations are changed, not in regards to how it impacts the communities around O'Hare. I will warn you, once this impact does happen, once this actually gets utilized to up to 40%, not only the north side is going to be impacted, more of the city of Elmhurst is going to be impacted. When this was, the OMP was told to, at least myself long ago, we were in full support of the OMP build-out, because we were also told that OMP build-out would utilize this runway for our 22L only in severe weather conditions. This is not the case from what has been presented, from what I know of this build-out. It will be used up to 40% of the time, and that is significant. So thank you, Mayor, thank you, City Manager Grabowski, for pulling together a presentation. Hopefully we can see that in the near term.
Okay.
Mr.
City
Mayor,
Manager Grabowski.
I'd like to follow up with.
Alderman Dunn.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was not able to attend the meeting in Bensonville. However, I did attend the one in Elk Grove Village, and I found it quite interesting. My takeaways on that were the O'Hare modernization plan is really driving at an east-west runway configuration, and I was able to talk to the regional director of the FAA, Barry Cooper. He's one of the 9 regional directors across the country. He runs the Great Lakes region, and he did confirm that the original study that came out in 2005 did support the east-west runway configuration as really the primary way to move forward to get the capacity up at O'Hare along with the safety. And this particular reevaluation 10 years later, I think that the document in front of our city manager, the one that was done 10 years ago was probably 10 times as large. But I did read that rather lengthy study, and I would encourage anyone else who has issues with noise or any concerns, other concerns regarding the O'Hare modernization project to review that. There are some drawbacks that I did see with the study. I did notice 30% of the takeoffs that were on 22L, which does kind of head right down the center of the 2nd and 3rd Ward in the north of town. However, a lot of the feedback I do get from my constituents is the landings are much more severe. They're at a much lower altitude, and the planes are traveling slower. So 30% is not good, but takeoffs, as far as Elmhurst is concerned, are better from a noise situation. And looking at all the modeling that was done on the takeoffs, generally those are taking off and banking immediately to the south and east, and really for the most part missing Elmhurst. The noise study that was done, the mapping that was done, shows 65 decibels, which is fairly loud, but nowhere in Elmhurst do we reach that. We see that a little bit in North Lake, but certainly departures from 22L, we're going to hear them. I believe it will be better than the situation that we had in years past. There are some other implications. They did a traffic study showing North York in Elmhurst being impacted by the expansion at O'Hare. They had something like 20% in exceedance of the capacity of that road. I'm not sure how that was figured, but that was in the study. They also look at emissions, which tend to, the assumption there is that things will actually improve due to the better emissions that the airlines are being pushed in their aircraft. The workshop had a nice video that sort of gave an overview of it. They had a sort of a trade show type of atmosphere where there were a lot of graphs, a lot of people to talk to, technical folks to really answer a lot of questions. It was very well done, and they also had court reporters there to take any comment. And as was mentioned before, those are due next week. I believe the 28th is that date. So I would encourage anyone that's concerned about this or interested in it to review the report and by all means comment on it. Thank you.
Okay. City Manager Grabowski, back over to you.
Thank you. Then I'd like to start with the review of the 2016 through 2020 capital expenditure budget. First, I'd like to start by thanking the finance staff, public works staff, as well as all the other directors for their input. Obviously, finance does the majority of the work on this. Public Works certainly has a lot of input, so thanks to Marilyn and Tom, thanks to Howard, Corey, Kent, and Gary Smith, and of course the other department directors as well. So just very quickly, the 2016 budget schedule kicked off in May with the KEB, and here we are in the middle of August with the review at City Council. So the objective of the 5-year capital expenditure budget is to identify and create a comprehensive plan for the long-range major capital expenditures necessary to maintain or develop the physical assets of the city. This year's capital plan reviews priorities, taking into account increasing construction costs and some limited revenues. Our capital expenditure is defined as those over $25,000 that result in the acquisition or construction of fixed assets intended to be held for periods longer than 10 years. We classify them into essential to number 6, contributes to the economic development of the city. We've been through this in the past, so I'm going to move a little quickly. And then priorities A through D. To try to get a handle on which to put into the budget. So with that, this year's 5-year CAB has increased to $120,238,800 from approximately $97 million, spread out over the 5 years of the plan. The reasons for the increase include significant construction cost increases, additional projects rolling onto the plan, and some carryover projects from the current year. Of that total, over $37 million is for stormwater-related projects over the 5 years. Here's a breakdown of our expenditures as far as the general fund, the municipal utility fund, which I'll get into in a little bit, the smaller ones of TIF and vehicle replacement, parking, and then stormwater detention taking up a big piece of the pie. Moving on to revenues, the revenues for the 2016 plan are projected to increase slightly by 2.5% annually in the home rule sales tax and in the state income tax, and by 1% annually in telecommunications tax. But I would advise the council that the proposed budget does not take into consideration any revenue changes as a result of the General Assembly action. At this time, it's very unclear to what, if anything, may happen, and if the General Assembly were to decrease municipal funding, reconsideration of expenses and or consideration of new or increased revenues would be necessary. Just a breakdown of the revenue sources that make up the capital improvement fund. Now, the 5-year KEB anticipates issuing some long-term debt, in the form of GO bonds and/or IEPA loans in years 2016, 17, and 18. And these are financing stormwater management projects and improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. However, the revenue in the capital improvement fund is not sufficient to support the debt service payments for the bonds necessary to fund the anticipated improvements. Short of an alternative revenue or an increase in a current revenue, the bond debt service payments for the stormwater management projects are proposed to be funded by the property tax. Staff is always searching for other funding options to help shoulder the burden away from property tax. And if you recall, one of the City Council's strategic goals is a review of alternative revenue sources. And so with some time and preparation, staff will gather this, and we stand ready to discuss these alternatives with the Finance Committee. You can see a breakdown of that debt that I'm talking about. Now, this is a slide which answers the annual question of where we stand in regard to our overall debt limits. And if you recall, our debt needs to be under 5% of our EAV. And as our projections show into the future, that we have a breakdown of GO debt with the library debt in red and GO debt without the library in blue. And you can see we trend up a little bit, but we anticipate that EAV increases and our debt payments go down. And so that trends downward at the end of the chart. Some highlights of the preliminary KEB are stormwater management, as I mentioned. Another one of the City Council's strategic plan priorities is stormwater management. The KEB has significant dollars dedicated to those projects over the 5-year plan. $37,244,000 is planned for stormwater improvements. The storm sewer repair program has been focused on televising and repairing the city's storm sewer system, and that focus will continue in 2016 and be expanded in 2017 to include a storm sewer lining program. The 2016 KEB continues to provide for storm sewer extension program and the residential stormwater management incentive program. The KEB also includes a new program, which is annual funding of $225,000 for inlet cleaning, which involves the cleaning of 1/4 of the stormwater inlets annually and the associated lead lines to maintain the integrity of the drainage system. Now, staff and the consulting engineer, Christopher Burke, are also continuing to look at infrastructure improvements as an addition to help the low-lying areas in town. It's anticipated that the Public Works Committee will be reviewing this within the next couple of meetings to discuss this. Here's another list of what we're going to talk about in brief. Street maintenance, an annual expenditure. Total street resurfacing is projected to continue at the average of 7.5 miles per year, with construction costs projected to be 20% greater than the 2015 budget. The street resurfacing budget of $1.75 million will fund about 6 miles annually in 2016 through 2018. And significant transportation federal grant funds have been approved to benefit the rehab projects on South York Street from Harvard to Jackson and on Poplar Avenue from Villette to Park. These two projects, along with the First Street Rehabilitation Project, will add an average of 1.5 miles of resurfacing annually in 2016 through 2018. And a federal grant application will be submitted for funds for the rehabilitation of Industrial Drive. Also included in this project is the rehab of feeder streets, which include Diversey, Wrightwood, Spangler, and Larch. The concrete street resurfacing program has been increased to $540,000 from $450,000 annually to reflect projected cost increase and to allow for the grind and overlay of the remaining bare concrete streets throughout Elmhurst in approximately 12 years. In addition, the 5-year KEB provides funds for railroad interconnect improvements at First and Addison and at St. Charles at Berkeley. It also includes improvements to the Robert Palmer Drive underpass, including rehabilitation of sidewalks, landscaping walls, and repair of the existing stairs for the northwest quadrant, which is the one in front of the police department. We currently have 2 bicycle pedestrian safety projects under consideration. The first is the Prairie Path at York Street. The second is a pending referral regarding pedestrian bicycle bridge over Route 83 north of North Avenue. However, it is anticipated that these projects would move forward in future years if directed by the council and if grant funding becomes available. There's a couple of diagrams of the other street projects. In addition to that is our continued city parking lot resurfacing program, and that's funded through 2 systems, general fund and parking. Next is the IT budget. As you can see, this budget contains mostly normal upgrades and replacements, including 30 mobile data terminals for the police department and the live scan system and copiers. The 2016 budget also includes costs associated with the city's enterprise server and software. Next, we move on to the municipal utility fund, which is primarily the wastewater treatment plant, but it also includes water distribution. Based on the comprehensive water and sewer rate study in 2013, the water main replacement budget was increased to $1.4 million in 2015 and will increase each year to reach an annual expenditure of $2.3 million by 2019. This investment is recommended due to the significant number of water main breaks annually, the age of the infrastructure, and best practices as identified by the American Water Works Association. The 2016 CAB also includes a water meter replacement project, which will replace all meters in the city during 2016 and 2017 and will allow for remote reading of meters. Not only does that eliminate some labor costs for us, but it would improve accuracy as well. Regarding the sanitary sewer system, the sanitary sewer rehab budget has also been increased significantly from $950,000 annually in 2014 to $1.5 annually, with the focus on sanitary lateral lining and costs associated with identifying and removing private sector sources of clear water flow into the sanitary system. 2016 CAB provides for several major replacement projects at the wastewater treatment plant, including the effluent sampling station, some HVAC modifications, grit removal system replacement, some improvements at the North Avenue lift station, which is inside of East End Park, 3 influent enclosed screw pumps, the south digester cover. All of this equipment has been in service over 20 years, and it's a harsh 24/7 environment, 24 hours a day, and must be replaced before failure. So here are some indications of those projects. Next is the parking system fund. The CAB provides for the ongoing maintenance of the 4 parking decks, Schiller, Adelaide, Larch, and Addison. And again, circling back to stormwater management, the discussion that I had earlier is more operational and not operational, but more in the general fund category. This stormwater works with the stormwater management projects that are on the table right now. To start with, we have 2 stormwater projects which are projected to be started in 2015. The Quarry Project, which helps homes in the area bounded by York to west and north to First, and the Webster Avenue Project. These 2 projects are being funded with proceeds of the 2015 GO bond. The 2016 budget includes projects that help the Pine Avon area, York Commons Park, York I-290 area, the Madison School Project, and the Harrison Street Project. 2016 budget also includes engineering for the Bryan Middle School project and the College View or York High School project. Now, the 2017 budget provides for the construction of those 2 projects, Bryan Middle School and the College View. 2018 budget includes East End Park, Jackson School, Crestview Park, and Wild Meadows Trace projects. Also included in the 2016 CAB is $1 million annually for a $5 million total for the property buyout program. The funding for the stormwater management projects will be primarily GO bonds, and it is projected at this time that approximately $30 million will be required during the next 3 years to fund the projects that have been identified in the 2016 CAB. Moving on to the TIF districts, the budget provides for land acquisition and improvements in the Lake Street redevelopment project, which is TIF 2, as well as ongoing streetscape improvements in the Central Business District, which is TIF 1, and funding for improvements to the Schiller Court parking lot is also included in the TIF 1 proposed budget. So the summary of proposed expenditures in the CAB is presented as a working document and awaits the council's review. It's anticipated that the city council meeting tonight will include council review and discussion of the 5-year capital expenditure budget. In accordance with the budget preparation schedule, the final CAB will be incorporated into the 2016 2-year operating budget and distributed to the city council on or before October 26th. With that, I would say thank you for your attention. And we, staff, are here to answer questions.
Oh, okay, thanks, sir. Okay. All right, any questions for City Manager Grabowski? Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the property buyout program, just seeing it straight across, it's $1 million for each year. I don't have the committee report handy, but I have a question about about the budgeting for the buyout program. And does the report speak to the carryover into the next budget year? You know, we've talked about there's a process by which we're designating the most attractive projects, and the ones that might have properties that are contiguous might be the ones that are the most meaningful, and perhaps those would go over $1 million. So I was just wondering, we didn't spend in 2015. Does the committee report say anything about making that $2 million for the next year?
Those are funds that were dedicated to that capital project, so that would carry over into the next fiscal year, as long as the council makes that a priority, and at this point, I assume that we would.
Thank you.
Other questions? Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to touch on some of the stormwater pieces. I know there's, you know, this is what we know right now. We're going to have a presentation from Burke next Monday on the Plan B, the infrastructure improvements. That's going to be a big number. That's probably going to be 50 million or more, 50. That's not in here, and that's, some of those projects will need to get done to alleviate flooding in Southwest Elmhurst. What this also doesn't include, and let me take a step back, one of the things we want to do in Public Works is, after we get the Plan B Burke report and have a further discussion on private property flooding protection, we want to then take a step back, look at all the areas that have had overland flooding, and come up with one plan that says this is how we're going to address every area. You know, these are our options. This is what we're going to ultimately come back to council with. Here's how we believe we should proceed over X number of years. You know, so you're going to have additional infrastructure in other areas of town, the private property flood proofing. We're ultimately going to probably need to do some compensatory storage, so we're going to have a cost related to that. And based on the Park District projects and the interaction with the DNR and many of those properties being purchased through DNR funds, we're going to need to buy compensatory land to offset and allow those projects to happen. So, in a long way, I'm trying to say what's in here for $30 million isn't even close to what we're ultimately going to need to spend. It could be somewhere around 100 million. I don't know. That's what we'll all figure out. And one of the things I want to, you know, we got to prepare ourselves for that, because I feel we will have that number somewhere between now and October, so that we can evaluate this further in the budget discussion. One of the things I'm going to ask Alderman York and his committee is, you got to tell us how much we can spend, because that's what we're going to give you X. You got to tell us what our budget is for each year, and that's going to tell us the duration of how long this is gonna take. So I know you're already thinking that way, but that's really where this comes down to. And we'll have to prioritize accordingly because, you know, it's gonna be a lot of money, and we gotta determine what's the pace of our spending and what's the ability for us to be able to pay for that in debt service and the burden as that may land on the taxpayers to do that. So that's kind of where we're going with this. Again, not everything's in here, but it's a lot. There's a lot to go. Now, again, we got to remember, it's all based on a 100-year level of protection. So that's what we've stated previously is what we're shooting for. That comes with that caveat. Thank you.
Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple comments and then something I'd like to see added to the budget. Specific to the home buying program, just a reminder to the council and to the public. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, the program has been very successful. I asked Director Killian late last week, and I think we're up to 15 to 18 homes that have gone to the second round of information gathering. And so I view that, you know, that the program has been very well received and that we've got people that are looking to sell their homes to us. But with that in mind, I want to remind the council that, you know, that program in and of itself was never meant to be a short-term mitigation. That's really a long-term play. $1 million a year doesn't do a whole lot in and of itself. But if you think about after 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, you know, now you're talking about 30, 40, 45 homes that if we do a good enough job and catch some luck here and there, you know, we can aggregate those properties in some of these affected areas, and now we do have significant retention. So I want to make sure we stay consistent with that message that, you know, some folks want to see that as our only, not our only, but as a big part of our mitigation now. And it might be for 3 homes or 2 homes, but that program is really a long-term play. Chairman Kennedy touched on the other projects, the Plan B projects, or projects that, areas of town that are unaffected by parks and schools, and certainly the 5th Ward has one in the Swain, Sailor, Villette area. And this is what I'd like to see in the budget. If somebody from that area looked at our KEB, they don't see anything. They don't see anything in the budget to address their concerns. And I know why that is, because we don't have anything specific yet. We're talking to the county, we're working with the county to try to come up with some specific projects that would help mitigate flooding in those areas. And Swain and Sailor's not the only one. Certainly there are others, South Spring Road and some others that I know of. But we know we're going to spend the money, whether it's on engineering, hopefully it's on some things like enhanced pumping. I'd like to see us put something in the budget, call it a placeholder, call it a, and I know Maryland, the finance people don't like to use miscellaneous or catch-all budget lines. But I really think in this, in this circumstance with stormwater, I'd like to see something in the budget for 2016, for 2017, for 2018, that we can, as council people, point to residents and say, no, you might not see a specific mitigation for your area, but we do have money budgeted, so as we get the appropriate approvals and we get the appropriate direction from whether it's county or state or what have you, we've got the money appropriated. So I know that's a tough ask, and I know that's difficult, but yet I think it's important to show the other areas that are unaffected by park, schools, or county projects that, no, we're still looking at you and we're still trying, and oh, by the way, there's money in the budget.
Okay?
Got it.
I will add, as it relates to stormwater, it's probably the thing that's most apt to change in our capital budget. We need a new aerobic digester, we get a new aerobic digester. But a couple things I wanted to just remind folks who are watching this. At some point, staff has to draw a line in the sand and say, this is the KEB as we know it. This is our budget as we know it. It's a 5-year budget, and it changes every single year. Anything projected more than 2 years out has always significantly changed. So a couple things I want to remind folks. Some of the stuff that was listed in stormwater is listed as simply just on our radar for planning. We don't have permission or agreement or IGAs with parks and schools yet. So I don't want anybody coming out of this meeting saying, well, city's already pressuring parks and schools to do X, Y, and Z. No, it behooves us to plan for this. Whether or not we have the IGA agreement with our fellow intergovernmental agreements yet is a secondary portion. So even stuff that's listed up there is going to change. In addition to that, as probably Alderman Kennedy and the Public Works Committee, more than anything, they're constantly looking at new capital projects, whether it's, as the manager said, new bike paths or a bridge, or in this case, I know there's a lot of pending what we'll call Plan B projects as it relates to stormwater mitigation. So there's just a lot of fluidity, if you will, in this. This is a good stake in the ground, a snapshot for today, but there's things that could happen in the Public Works Committee in the next 4 weeks that could drastically change this. So it's kind of a tie together of what Alderman Healy said, asking staff to put the unknown and then put a dollar amount next to it. So, but the intent is there. That's just something to caution, that I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us not to plan for some of the ideas we have, but that doesn't mean we have the permission to use those plans. Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. In probably no real order, but I'd just like, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for a lot of hard work on this capital expenditure budget. I think that with some of the comments we've already heard tonight, we understand the complexity in putting together something like this. So we've done the best job that we can with the information that we know. I think, one thing that's very comforting in this whole thing is that, as the city manager's presentation pointed out, there is flexibility in the city's ability to borrow money. Now, borrowing money isn't always a good thing, but when you're talking about the amount and all the different projects that we have to do that are very much long-term projects, this flexibility is very critical, and I think goes to Alderman Healy's ask, if you will, on putting some money in there. So I think that we have the flexibility there to do it, and a budget is a plan. So if we come across 8 weeks from now something that we know that can happen, the council can take the action to make definitive steps to get that done through the issuance of GO bonds and things like that. So I think that I certainly appreciate the request and everything, but it is difficult for accountants to put monies in a budget with miscellaneous, as you pointed out. So I think that's a really good thing, but I'm comfortable, and Alderman Kennedy asked me to let him know how much we can spend. I'm sure this committee is going to spend a lot of time listening to all the different options that we have, and I'm certain that this committee will make some really good recommendations to the city council for how to fund all these expenditures. I'll remind everybody that we're looking at $30 million GO bonds over the next 3 years, which is a lot of money. The other thing that we need to consider is that each year we have a certain amount of GO bonds drop off the radar too. So the net effect of over the next 3 years as planned is probably an increase in debt of about $15 to $20 million. So it sounds like a lot of money, but we're also getting rid of debt as we go on throughout the normal course of the debt cycle. Long story short is I certainly realize that with all the projects and challenges that the city faces in light of stormwater, that it is a challenge, but it's a challenge that I certainly feel comfortable with tackling, and I think we're going to make some great decisions and do some really good things, and I think we're going to obviously figure out a way to pay for it. But in an initial discussion with Finance Director Gaston this morning, are taxes going down in the near future? Probably not. Thank you.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a few questions that Alderman Polomsky already asked and Alderman Healy, but I want to touch on Alderman Healy's comments because I had that written down as well. I wholeheartedly agree that when I looked at this capital budget, not seeing stormwater infrastructure budgeted in some way, shape, or form, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice without doing so. I don't know, whatever you label it, miscellaneous, or put a real real label on it. But I think we need to start that engineering, that design process on the infrastructure piece sooner compared to later. And seeing, and I agree, Mr. Mayor, that, you know, it is a plan and things change at a drop of a hat depending on what priorities are, and that's what the definition of a plan is. But I think that is an essential part of this plan that needs to be in the plan to also communicate to the other government bodies that we are moving forward, because one of them, at least one of the other government bodies, has mentioned this as a contingency for moving forward with some of the detention on their current properties. One of the items in here is Robert Palmer Drive underpass, and I think City Manager Grabowski touched on this. And I know it's more from a aesthetics perspective, but as we all know, and we talk about stormwater issues, Robert Palmer floods and floods relatively quickly. Not saying I have any scientific data to back that statement up or not, but it floods quickly. While we're doing these beautifications, if you will, and I know that the brick pavers in the hill is starting to fall and lean into the street, and it is a safety issue, have we considered adding additional dollars to look at the pump capacity there, to look at what can be done to potentially drain that quicker? I would like to make a formal request of that to be looked into, because anything we can do to open up that underpass, even if it's 15, 20 minutes quicker, allowing ambulance and any emergency vehicles going through is very important for everybody's well-being, obviously. We already touched on the buyout program. The two TIFs, TIF 1 and TIF 2, I always get the end terms of both of these TIFs mixed up. But for TIF 1, I think we're getting relatively close to the end of TIF 1. I turn and look at Marilyn to maybe get a head nod. Where are we in regards to the pavers? I thought we're pretty much close to done with the brick pavers in TIF 1. And when will we see the end of that program? And then for TIF 2, if we can talk a little bit about, or if someone could speak a little bit further about the request in there, I believe that's the one that ends in 2016, the land acquisition that is stated for TIF 2.
City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. I'll take those in reverse. TIF 2, you're correct, that does end in 2016, Tom? Yes? 2016 for TIF 2. We had been looking at different properties in TIF 2 as far as assembling them for possible developments. We don't have anything under contract, but obviously if we had anything more serious, we would be talking to the council in closed session about that as far as purchasing that. So we are looking at some. We're trying to work with property owners on that. Regarding TIF 1, with the pavers, as I understand it, that's in front of the new deck, some Addison work, and a couple other projects that are still out there. I'd have to get back to you on exactly where we are as far as percentage completed. So if you'll give me that opportunity, we can get back to you on that. And then as far as upgraded pumps for Robert Palmer Drive, we have not looked into that. If it's the council's wish, certainly we can do that. It's my understanding it was designed that way with purpose, and with maybe some financial consideration at the time when that was built.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In regards to, and thank you for taking those action, Mr. Grabowski. In regards to Robert Palmer Drive and the pumping system, and you might not have this answer off the top of your head, but what is the age of that pump, and is it something that we should be exploring? And if not putting it within this budget year, maybe consider doing so in the near term. I think Robert Palmer, well, I'm not even going to guesstimate on how long ago Robert Palmer was built, the underpass that is. And maybe that is something that we should consider near term and propose of putting it in this 5-year plan. And then the last question, the water meter replacement. I want to say, and I'm looking across to Alderman Mulliner, that it feels like we just finished replacing our water meters within the last 5 years. At least it feels that way to me. Is there a necessity to go through and replace the water meters at this point, or is it something that we can hold off on?
Okay. As it relates to Robert Palmer, I think staff can look into how old the pumps are, and I think the request, is to be more specific, is to get it out of there quicker, but not necessarily pipe it all the way over to the creek or all the way over to
Agreed.
The quarry, which actually I know was looked into at the time of the underpass, and it was, ballpark was, it was equal to 50% of the cost of the underpass was to actually take the water all the way over to the quarry. So in this case, what you're talking about, Alderman Bram, is maybe a better or more efficient pump that pumps water out back into the existing system when capacity allows for it. And then as it relates to the water meters, maybe Mr. Trezine can I put him on the spot with that?
Sure. Or maybe Mr.
Or who?
Mr. Killian.
Or Mr. Killian. I deferred to Tom because I know he's been here a little longer than.
What we did replace were the radios, not the actual meter. That's what we're doing here. So our intent is that we will actually reuse the radio that's on the outside of the home, so we can do the mobile reads. So that's what was changed over the last 5-6 years and stuff. But this is actually the meter that's in the home.
You plug it into the side of the house now? It's not a mobile reader? So I think what
We just drive around.
the new one will.
No, now it does. The new one.
Go ahead.
What the mayor was asking me is how we read them. Right now, we just drive around and it automatically reads them. What this will allow us to do is go to a central point, Tom.
It'll be a fixed-base system, so we'll be able to read it here at City Hall at the garage, and we'll be able to read it instead of driving around town to read it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. When Mr. Trozine just spoke that, we're changing the meter and not the RF part of it, I was a little bit confused from the standpoint of, well, then how is that improving our efficiency at all? But I guess they are tied together, my understanding now from Mr. Trozine, and that definitely makes some sense. Was I close? Has it been the last 5 years?
5-6 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alderman Levin.
Well, Tinley Park has some used meters we might be able to pick up at a discount. 2 points. One is, and they're more administrative, because of what Alderman Kennedy and Alderman Healy were saying about placeholders, and in particular because of the complexity of stormwater, which I see already a large increase, and it's a big priority. But I don't see that, and I don't know in past years we've really had the opportunity to bring back the capital budget later on to sort of take another look at it. And I would think that maybe this year, because of that, it might be good to schedule it in somewhere to take another review before, because we spend multiple sessions on the operating budget. I'd like to see if we can schedule some time to come back on that. And the other question I have is, how long has the $25,000 limit been defined as capital budget? Because that seems like a very, in all the years I've been on the council, which is not as many as others, but it seems like it's a low limit for capital expenditures, and there's very few items in here that meet that definition.
Do you know how long, Jim? 25. Marilyn? A long time?
At least as long as I've been here.
150 years. Okay.
150 years. I think what would happen, Alderman Levin, in response to your council taking a secondary look at, another look at the capital budget, usually what happens is, I know Public Works and Finance chew on it a little bit, and then I think after some input that is desperately needed from both groups, we can bring it back and take another crack at it. I think that'd be the way to go. Yes, Alderman Earl.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think another, just to add on to the point you just made, is that each section of the budget, of the operating budget that we go over, is inclusive of capital expenditures. So that's also an appropriate time, and one where I raise issues with capital expenditures is when we're actually talking about the operating budget, because it's contributing to the capital budget is contributing.
I think Alderman Levin's point was because there's so many moving parts on the stormwater stuff, maybe some more detail and even a plan A, B, or C, if depending on how things go. Okay, any other comments or questions? Alderman Toledo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in cross-referencing a little bit our strategic plan with some of the items in the capital expenditure budget, I had a couple of clarifying questions, potentially City Manager Grubowski could help me with. First off, I'm not sure, need to clarify whether these things would be considered capital expenditures or they may be things that we will see in the future in the operating budget. But specifically related to the police security cameras, I do see some items listed under the information technology related to police equipment, mobile data terminals and such. There is a reference to some security something, and I'm just wondering if that would mean the police security cameras, or would that be an operating budget expenditure?
If you're referring to the license plate reading technology?
No, I think we talked about I believe the body cameras during our strategic planning sessions back in the wintertime.
Yeah. Boy, I'd have to get back to you on that. Depending on, Chief and I haven't talked about that too much, so we'd have to look at that and see how we would want to, if it's appropriate for Elmhurst, first of all, of course, talking to the committee level, and then understand how we might want to roll something like that out and how it would be paid for. Obviously, if it was all purchased at once and it was over $25,000, then yes, it could be included in the capital budget.
Okay. And maybe then, as a follow-up to that, thank you for that answer, is, maybe you could help us all understand how the staff thought about the strategic plan in reference to this then, because maybe I'm asking a question that isn't appropriate given that, but I had thought that was something that we had discussed. And before you take that, I'll just ask my second question, which was, there was, I think, a number of folks who have some support for increased communication tools between the city and residents. There's always opportunity for improvement there. Is that something, for example, I would call out specifically the website? The website improvement itself wouldn't be a capital expenditure, but potentially the hardware or other things that might support that. And would that be included, is that kind of rolled into this information technology section? It's about 1.7 million.
You would be correct on both points, that the website would be more in the operating budget, and if there was new hardware needed for hosting it, we would have that, but it's my understanding that the company that designs it for us also hosts it. That in particular is not an issue, but I understand what you're saying, and I believe that I touched on a couple of the strategic plan elements here that crossed over to the capital budget. Certainly, you'll hear more about that as we get into the operating budget.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. We've done, hadn't done it in the previous 8 years I've been here, but we've done some significant strategic planning. So I think it's a good question, or a good piece of input for all staff, not only in the capital budget, but when you come forward this year with the operating budget, we do have that roadmap now. So you can point out, this is priority number 2, and this is how we're addressing, the first 20% of it. It's something good to keep in mind. Because it also is a way to share with council, yes, we're doing what priorities were set. So, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. City Manager Grabowski and staff, thank you for the update. Resolutions. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the first resolution on the agenda.
Okay, R90-215, a resolution authorizing the execution of a settlement agreement and release between Robert Palumbo and the City of Elmhurst, and the execution of a service agreement between Robert Palumbo, Garrett McKenzie Environmental Group, Inc., and the City of Elmhurst.
Okay, to put this before the council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Mulliner. Before we go into discussion, I'm going to turn it over to City Attorney Storino to provide us an update.
Yes, this settlement agreement authorizes, this resolution authorizes a settlement agreement
as it indicates, between Mr. Palumbo and the city. It arises by virtue of property damage claims that occurred on May 11th, 2015 at property located at 264 Northwest Avenue. This settlement agreement will result in the release of those claims by Mr. Palumbo, and the amount of settlement represented by the property damage is $111,645.59.
Okay. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter. Aye. Sabatino.
Aye.
Leader absent. Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries, resolution is approved. On to the next resolution. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the resolution.
R91-2015, a resolution authorizing the execution of a settlement agreement and release between Kim Kalatos and the City of Elmhurst, and the execution of a service agreement between Kim Kalatos, Garrett McKenzie Environmental Group, Inc., and the City of Elmhurst.
I think we're getting some backup.
Having some floodwater problems.
Clerk Spencer, have you finished reading?
Yes.
Okay. Apparently the sink wants to chime in. Okay, I'll ask for a motion, to put this before the council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution as read. Alderman Mulliner and Alderman Honquist. And I'm going to turn this one over to City Attorney Storino as well.
Likewise, this is a resolution to approve a settlement agreement that arises by virtue of a property damage claim which occurred on May 11th, the same date as the prior, May 11th, 2015. This settles a claim, a property claim against the City of Elmhurst for the property located at 266 Northwest Avenue, which resulted in property damage settlement in the amount of $106,322.63.
Okay, very good. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Honquist.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Leader absent. Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Toledo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries, resolution is approved. On to other business. Any other business? Okay, before I ask for motion to adjourn, I just want to go back to the beginning of our meeting. There was a lot going on. I want to congratulate our very own Sergeant Himpelman on his promotion. Also want to thank the recipients of the Award of Valor, Officer John Pacewitz, Officer Margaret Hopkins, Elmhurst Officer Hopkins and Pacewitz, and then Oak Brook Terrace Officer Jason Slugowitz, and also say thank you again to Sergeant Mark Stevens for his work with the Illinois Air National Guard. That having been said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Palumski. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.